Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, to which Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, to chat to some of the interesting figures and leading lights in this crazy industry we are in of writing and self-publishing. And today we are delighted to have a very special guest, Mr. JD Caron, who is from Weekend Publisher. And he is here today to tell us all about the value of new readers versus existing readers and everything to do with that, which is a topic I love to nerd out about. So JD, we are delighted to have you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to nerd out a little bit with you as well. Hopefully, we don't nerd out too hard and lose some people, but it'll be a good and certainly useful nerd out session for anyone listening to this.
Absolutely. If you want to sell books, this is a conversation you need to listen to. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Roland. Thanks for joining us, JD. And don't worry if you guys want to nerd out, I can always act as the moderator, the guy that isn't understanding the numbers so well, and I'll make sure to interject and get you guys to speak more English if needed. But yeah, I mean, the topic is so JD, actually, first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys do, and then we can sort of jump into sort of this topic, right? But I guess just in terms of people who don't know you, they'll get an idea of what it is that you do and why you can talk about topics like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Roland said there, I'm the owner of weekendpublisher.com. The business has been expanding. It started off with book marketing coaching. Now it's expanded to a done-for-you service for some authors as well, where we'll actually market for them, and writing coaching service. So we're always expanding. We've also got a blurb writing service as well. So yeah, we do a bunch of things with that. And why I feel like a lot of people will benefit from this is because I've looked at these numbers with over 200 authors that I've coached. So it's not just I'm just looking at my set of books. I'm looking at books primarily fiction, but nonfiction as well, with over 200 authors. So I could see, okay, where do people go wrong? What are people not tracking? What they should be tracking? What actually gives them the best bang for their resources or bang for their buck? And we'll get into it. Resources being time and money. So we'll be looking at those things as well. So yeah, I actively coach people, and our team runs done-for-you marketing services for books.
And you started this because you wrote as well for a while, right?
Absolutely. I don't have time to write much these days, with a young son at home and running a business. But that was exactly right. I wrote my first book in 2017, and I was sort of an anomaly, you would call it. I actually preferred the marketing over the writing process. I'm a big numbers guy. I love analyzing numbers. I like breaking it down for people, educating others. So yeah, it just started with, okay, well, I knew some other people in that space while I was, helping promote the book, because I was also writing the book with marketing in mind. It was coming out at the same time as a movie was coming out, the movie Dunkirk in 2017, in July 2017. So the book was based around the events of Dunkirk. So it's really trying to ride on the coattails of that movie. And of course, I met up with other authors in the process. Then I was having some success, and other people were asking me, for tips. And I threw everything against the wall, which I do not recommend anyone do. I think every author, probably starts off at that point. They're just like, oh, well, I read 10 blog posts, and now here are 40 things that I should be doing, right? Like, oh, no wonder authors are overwhelmed, right? And the worst part about it is all or most of those tactics can be useful in some degrees, or were useful 10 years ago, right? So it's not like just completely trying to get authors to go astray. But yeah, there's just way too much information out there. So I did those 40 things. I spent thousands and thousands, maybe probably $10,000 trying to market this in the first 2 months. And looking back afterwards, looking at the data, I'm like, wow, there's only a few things that actually move the needle from what I could tell. So
and it's
that's where I
all
started
about that,
coaching.
isn't it? Oh, I really want to read your book. My grandfather was evacuated from Dunkirk, so there we go. I'm your target
Really?
audience. Yes.
Really? Wow, that's unreal. Yeah.
But you're so right. There are so many things that you need to do, and I think one of the reoccurring themes that we've had is like, you pick one thing and commit to it, and then see if it moves the needle or not, rather than trying to do everything and not doing it enough. Because we had the experience with people who would, they would try advertising but not commit to it, and then be like, advertising doesn't work, and it's like, it very clearly does work if you do it right. But you're trying to do that and this and this, and you end up not doing any of them right, rather than one thing right.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, and most new authors think, well, I don't know what it is I should be focused on. If I double down on this one thing, is it actually going to work? For an example, like Twitter. Twitter's like a classic one. Or if I double down at I'm posting 5 times a day on Twitter, and I make sure I do it right, I feel like I'm doing it right, is that I can actually make a difference? And that's when, like, consulting with, because I know you guys all offer consulting service as well. So that's when, like, a consulting service with you guys would be useful to be, what to do and then how to do it.
Yeah, I think there's, like you said, there's so much information out there, and people don't really know what is good and what is bad. And we talk to authors all the time, unfortunately, that deal with some companies that don't necessarily have a good grasp of what works, but they sell the service because people want the service. They don't know what they don't know, and so they just look and they find one place, and that's the one they use, and it's not always the best one. And you kind of have to go through word of mouth. You have to sort of look at them all and sort of figure out which ones are being updated regularly. That means they're probably still involved in a lot of this stuff, as opposed to people that write articles years ago and then don't change anything, and then just sell a service that's based on information that might be years old, because everything changes so quickly, right? And that's one of the reasons why we want to have this podcast. We can talk to people about sort of the issues that are as they change and evolve, and we can keep the conversation moving. So for sure, that's one of the most important things, because people are definitely focusing sometimes on the wrong stuff, and it's a shame, to waste a lot of time and money. But that's what we're here to talk about today too, is the issue of time and money, because both of them are valuable and both of them are in limited supply when you're a new author, right? And the idea of getting new readers and how much that is going to cost you in both time and money, and then determining if there is a value in those new readers, and what is that value that you're getting from the new readers. So why don't we kick off that discussion? So what can you tell us about sort of that idea of these new readers and the value behind them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will not leave your audience hanging. I will eventually get to the point of, okay, in my experience right now, this is what's been getting the most bang for your buck. So I will get to that, and then I'll be happy to hear your guys' experience and have a little discussion around it. But I know you had an accountant on, whenever this comes out, a couple weeks or months ago, and she did mention one thing that I really appreciated. So this will be, it won't be crazy numbers heavy, but it will be imploring the audience listening to this or watching this to think more about the numbers. So she also mentioned, to think of it as a business. And so whenever you sell anything online, you are in a business. And I was talking with a friend of mine who's also in the space. He's a writing coach. And we were talking about business, and he said, business is not that hard. Business, he's from the UK. So he said maths with a plural, but he said business is just maths. Right? He says business is just math. And that's really all it is. And I don't know about your guys' experience, but or the people listening to this, but a vast majority of my clients, they have the dream of being able to write full-time one day. So to write full-time one day and to actually make it sustainable, or at least to make it supplement their income, they have to understand their numbers. They just have to, because there's so many people that I talk to that are panicking. Oh, my Facebook ads have gone down the drain. They're total. I almost swore, but they're total crap. But then we look at the numbers and like, okay, it's actually not that bad. Or, I'm doing Amazon ads. I think they're doing well, but we look at the numbers and they're doing horribly.
You're
right?
so right. There's such a dangerous thing between perception and like actual reality tracked by numbers. There are so many times where it's like right now, I'm like, oh, my Facebook ads, they're losing value and stuff like that. And then you do the math, and you're like, no, you know what? They're still making a profit margin. Maybe not as much as they were last week, but if you just went by feeling, you might scrap the whole thing. When you look at the numbers, you actually see.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So whenever we're looking at, are we doing Amazon ads? Are we doing Facebook ads? Are we doing price promotions? Are we doing, something that's on Fiverr, which I generally don't recommend many things that are on there. We want, just as you're doing fractions, you want a common denominator. So if you want to add 1/3 and 1/4, you need to find a common denominator to be able to add those. Right. So what we want to find is a common denominator. So Amazon ads has ACoS. I do not like ACoS because it doesn't take a lot of factors into account. A lot of factors. It's kind of useless.
Like Kindle Patriots, and it doesn't give you your royalties. It just gives you your overall sales, doesn't it?
Well, I think it does give the estimated royalties. Actually, you're right. The sales, yeah, it just gives you. So if your paperback's priced at $13.99, it'll just say $13.99. So,
and then and so you only get 70% of that. So immediately, like if your ACOS is 100%, you might think, oh, that's good, but actually it needs to be sub 70 to be hardline making a profit.
Yeah, so ACoS is crap. I did a YouTube video on my channel, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, but going ranting about how bad ACoS is and how useless it is to us as authors. And we'll get more into that in terms of the value per reader, but just looking at making everything a denominator, we want to look at what is the cost per new reader. So again, going back to, okay, this is a business. Businesses think of it, they call it cost per acquisition, right? So how much does it cost us in ad dollars to get a new client? Or in our case, as authors, how much does it cost us to get a new reader? Okay, and a lot of things can factor into that. Like what method am I doing to actually promote my book? What are how many people are taking action on my book when they actually go to it? So looking at like the book cover, the blurb, the reviews, the A+ content, the look inside, all those things that go into it. Am I meeting readers' expectations in terms of, okay, what I'm advertising and what they're actually clicking through and going to see? So there's a lot of different factors that go into what is the cost per new reader. Typically, in my experience, it can be higher, it can be lower, but it's usually somewhere in the range of $2 to $8. Somewhere in that range. I have seen some other authors where it might be 30 cents or 50 cents to get a sale on the first book. We're talking like standalone or a series. We're just looking at the first book to get people into the series. So typically, in my experience, it's between $2 to $8. I have seen it as high as $136, which is completely unsustainable, right? You put $1,000 in, you get, I don't know what the math is there, but like 5 readers, 6 readers.
And I mean, if you have then a 100-book series, maybe that you're talking there. But sorry, I interrupted you, Craig.
No, so we're talking here about, so just so people understand, so ACoS being the advertising cost of sales that Amazon shows you, which is basically just their calculation of what you spent on your advertising versus what you got back, right? So they'll just do some quick math to say, oh, you spent $100 and you got 10 sales, so it costs you $10 or whatever it is, right? Like they're just doing the easy math of whatever. So, but you're saying that it has to come from your cost is not just that. It's all these other sort of invisible factors that you have to account for, like all the money you've spent doing all these other things, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, just the money spent on that action. So let's say I put in $100 into Amazon ads and I get 10 readers out of it. So that's $10 a new reader. So we don't want to look at it as a whole, because, you know, you could be doing like, I don't advise it, but like 10 different things. You don't want to take a look at it as a whole. You want to get it down to more of a micro level as to what method is actually working for me in my book. So that's
then the 80-20 rule comes in, isn't it? If you're getting 80% of your new readers from 20% of your marketing, then you want to go all in on that 20% rather than waste time on the other stuff. Time and money.
Exactly. So that's exactly right. Like we could do, I don't want to get too much into it because that might be like a whole other discussion in terms of, you know, Amazon ads and how the cost per click has gone up to a point where it's, in my experience, almost unsustainable to get like a decent cost per new reader. I mean, it's great for data, but you know, that's in its simplest form. So I spent $100, I got 10 readers, that's $10 a new reader. There's other factors, like if your book is in KDP Select, you know, how many page reads did I get and how much of that, you know, how does that compare to your KENPC V3, right? So how many books did I get out of that? That gets a little bit more into the weeds. But it's essentially, you know, if my book is 500 pages, according to Amazon, by going to the marketing tab in their bookshelf, scrolling all the way to the bottom, they could see what Amazon says their book is in terms of page counts. So say my book is, you know, 500 pages as according to Amazon, and there's 1,000 page counts, then I got an extra 2 books out of that.
I'm all in on KU, and I get the majority of my income through that, and it's like being able to track that is so huge.
You and I share the same process there. Usually what I tell people is the rule of thumb is, now fantasy kind of trumps this, but the rule of thumb is income over exposure.
Rank before bank. No, bank before rank.
That's good.
I didn't make that one up. That was actually from
who's
Wide for the Win. That was I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she says, yeah, bank
Caron,
before rank.
Caron, right?
And I mean, I disagree with that. I don't go wide, but I still think, you know, bank before rank is a really good rule to live by.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Like it, to be honest, like probably 99% of my authors go with KDP Select as well. Especially for a new author, because it's just easier. It's just, you have one marketplace to focus on. You know, the 80-20 rule, you just have the one marketplace to focus on. And yeah, Kindle Unlimited for fiction books, especially, you'll get the majority of the books read through page reads.
Yeah, and I'm noticing that with my own, and I write in romance, and of course, romance is huge in KU. And you think, I think 44 million was the last month's bonus. So you think there are like 40 million readers in KU. So, you know, there are all these other readers elsewhere, but a pool of 40 million readers to reach out to isn't something to sniff at.
Yeah, and that's totally true. And you could see from Publisher Rocket, one of their recent updates, when you look for categories, it shows you the percentage of books that are in Kindle Unlimited. So when I go through with clients, you know, I'm like, oh, look, you know, there's 70% of the books in this category have Kindle Unlimited. So what are the expectations of the readers? Right? Most of them would expect the book to be in Kindle Unlimited. So.
And I've noticed, I don't know if this follows with you, but they're almost like isolated communities on Amazon. There are the people who only ever download free books, and they will never pay money for a book. There are only the people who will pay 99 cents. They're a Kindle Unlimited. They're like, if it's not in Kindle Unlimited, I'm not going to read it, because then I have to spend money, whereas even they are spending money. And then there are that small group who will pay whatever for a book. But it's like there's no cross-pollination. Somebody who normally only downloads free books isn't going to suddenly pay $4.99 for a book unless like it's out of this world. Grab them. And it's the same with Kindle Unlimited readers. The advantage of Kindle Unlimited is, to them, it costs them nothing. They have to like return this book from their imaginary library, which means like just getting them to become a conversion is so much easier.
Yeah, and that's That's exactly, and I'd like to touch on it too. Going from free to $4.99 in the read through rate when we talk about value per reader, right? Where, to be honest, I'm not we're starting to get a little bit off track now, but I'm not a big fan of free book promotions. Not a huge fan of them. I wrote a book on how to market your fiction book, I think 3 years ago, and I talked about how much I liked free book promotions because I liked them back then, and now I'm like, darn it.
I based my entire career on that. Free book promotions. It was like, I write a book, I do a free book promotion, get it up to number 5 in the ranks, and then I'm making thousands the next 3 months, and that's just disappeared now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be careful on what you do with it too. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, use it to use the free book promotion to get people onto their mailing list, which is, I think, a really bad way to get people onto your mailing list, because those are people that fall into that group of, I only download free books. So, you can pump up your mailing list and maybe that makes you feel good, but it's not actually helping your bottom line, because when you go to try to sell them your next book, you send that out to your mailing list, which should be a great place for you to sell your new book when it first comes out, because you're sending it out to your fans right away, and then they click and they buy and whatever. But if that list is made up primarily of people that came from a free book promotion, you're not going to see a lot of sales come from that, and that's usually what we see. And so for me, the free book promotion, the biggest value it has is the connection that it makes to other books in the Also Bought sort of thing. So you all of a sudden give out thousands of copies, and some of those people are going to be people that are only getting free books, but there will be some that aren't, right? And they're clicking and they're connecting you to other books that they've bought, and so now when you show up on those ribbons of people who bought this also bought that, that's giving you some value. But really, I mean, the free rank is different than the paid rank, so and that disappears as soon as your book comes off the free promotion. So great, you got up to number 20 in the free book, but as soon as that ends, you're back down even lower than you were on the paid rank, because you went a week or however long the promotion was without making any sales. And so now your paid rank, when you switch over, becomes terrible, right?
Oh, it was such a beautiful time. It's almost like we're going back to the topic, though, of cost per new reader versus value per new reader. You're talking about how these new readers you acquire from free books might not have as much value as from other sources. I'll shut up now. I interrupted you.
They have low value, and they also had low costs, but they had low fixed costs, right? But there's still that sort of cost of, how many copies did you give away where somebody would have bought it? There's some level there too. It's not a huge amount, because most of those people are buying the free or would never pay for the book anyways. But there is some value that you lost there. But I think that there's very little value when we talk about cost and value. There's very little value to those new readers, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. You build your list the dirty way. And it's cool because you can have, a big email list, which you can call vanity metrics, right? Sexy numbers, but it doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it means a big bill from MailChimp every month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there you're sitting with an open rate of 4% or something. That's really the big difference. So yeah, they're sexy numbers, but what was that one phrase? I'm not sure if you ever heard of it. And I can't think of it now. That was lame. Anyways, it was about like all cowboy, no cattle, or something like that. Where like dress the part.
Oh, in England we saw it was all mouth, no trousers.
All mouth, no trousers. It's good.
We're a strange country.
I don't even understand that one. All mouth, no trousers. I think I might need somebody to explain that one to me.
Yeah, I don't even want to. I don't want to go down that path.
Yeah, but, maybe you don't want that.
It sounds off. So yeah, okay. So going back to the cost per new reader. So finding the common denominator. So that can also apply for everything that you do. So, Roland, I know you guys mentioned it in the newsletter. It's been more of a talk now. It's been out for a number of months, but more and more people are talking about it. Finally, Amazon attribution links.
Oh, they're like, hallelujah. What an invention. It's a game changer.
Absolute game changer. When they sent that email, I was literally jumping for joy. I said, finally. You know, now we can have a further discussion of, okay, well, how accurate is it? You know, how delayed is it? You know, I think it's still quote unquote in beta.
I don't know if it's been published yet, but I actually wrote a blog post about where I compared what the attribution figures were and then what my increase in sales compared to a 6-month average was. And it was really interesting. But I mean, that's the information that's the missing thing that I think self-publishing publishers have been waiting for, because it finally enables you to get that valuable information you used to only be able to get from Amazon ads, and Amazon ads are really, really tough to make profitable.
Yes.
I was so excited I nearly ran out of breath.
I love it. Yeah, so you know, if you do Facebook ads, for an example, or if you do Twitter ads, or even if you do, you know, you could take that attribution link and throw it into a Bitly so it doesn't look ugly as hell, right? And it'll, like, Bitly will give you an amzn.to link. Like, it actually looks like it's closer to an Amazon link as opposed to, right, this long string, which looks spammy. But you know, if people are going to use that, if people are going to do, I did another video on my YouTube channel as well. I'm not plugging it, but I'm just trying to refresh my memory, why social media sucks for marketing your book. And I'm talking about organic social media. I'm not talking about ads. And a big part of it is the algorithm and being, you know, this becoming much more of a pay to play type of environment. You have to really, you know, understand the algorithm quite well to do it well organically.
Yeah, and some are worse than others. I mean, obviously Facebook is the worst for that. I think, though, we have had a couple people on who have sort of made the argument that there are a couple social sites where you still get a lot of value. And I think one of them, which we don't always think of as a social site, but Goodreads, which is something that I think a lot of readers don't really think a lot about, but it can be a really effective way to promote your book. And I think we had, by the time this airs, it will have already aired, Alessandra Torre back on talking about that. And she really brings up some really interesting things that you can do with Goodreads that I hadn't really thought about before. And I think a lot of users, a lot of authors are the ones doing it right, are finding success with TikTok as well. But I think with the Twitter and the Facebook and Instagram, like, I think that those, you're sort of getting lost in the void, and the pay to play nature of them, where if you are not paying to boost your thing, your post, nobody's really seeing it.
No, and that's exactly.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, TikTok. I know some people are having some success with TikTok now. When some people say I'm having success, not a lot of people show the real numbers of actual sales, right? TikTok is like great for vanity metrics. Like, man, I got 20,000 followers, right? I sold $2, right? Like, it's just.
It depends, yeah, for sure. We one of our first episodes of this, we had Jennifer Milken on, and one of her TikTok posts went viral, and she went, her book, she did talk the numbers. They went up to you know, she became a bestseller. Like, the book got optioned.
But she got 60 million, didn't she?
Yeah,
I mean,
but that was a viral. That's not obviously the big, you know, the most likely case. Hers went viral. But people using the book talk thing, they are talking about how many people are seeing it. I think some people, yeah, maybe are seeing a boost. I don't know, though. You could be right. Like, maybe for the most part, they're not seeing a lot of sales come from that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've noticed that I've started to put attribution tags on the profile links for my Instagram and stuff like that, and I've noticed no click through. Like, serious. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Like, I had one coaching client who actually meet with her again on Friday. She was like, "Oh, Twitter. You know, I post often on Twitter, and I have, you know, 300 followers or so." So I said, "Okay, let's do the attribution link thing." And we looked at how much time she was spending. She was spending about half an hour every 3 days on it. So just check it in every 3 days, like half an hour, schedule a post and so on. And yeah, we looked at it after, I think it was 2 weeks, might have been like 5 clicks and like 20 page reads. So, okay, what can we use our time better for, right? What can we use our time? If our goal is to write full time, we need a higher value per new reader. So we need new books. We need more books, right? We need to get better at writing more books.
Are you going to tell me to write more?
Am I going to tell you that?
Like the curse. We all want to be writers, and then we're always like struggling to like actually not distract ourselves from doing anything except write.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, just going back to we keep getting sidetracked, but I think they're good points being made. So yeah, the cost per new reader. So you want the common denominator, and you want to track it at least over a month at the same price. So you don't want to change things too much. So you don't want to like put in a new blurb. You don't want to put in that. Now, some of it depends on, okay, how much am I actually putting in to actually advertise it? If I'm just putting in $5 a day, it's going to be slower to get that data, right? If I'm putting in $30 a day, which I've seen a lot of authors do well at that, then it'll be shorter or would have stronger data. So yeah, with Amazon attribution links, we're able to also put those into our Facebook ads and track that as well. And the third thing that I recommend, at least tracking. So Amazon ads is good for data, but as you said, Roland, in my experience, the cost per click is just far too high these days to make a profit off of it. And if your cost per click is lower, you might make a profit off of it, but you'll sell a book a month.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. It's almost impossible to scale.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook ads, I really like. Scaling is really, really good with it. Targeting is okay, but their algorithm seems to be doing a better job. It's not like targeting when I first used where you could target specific pages. Now it's much more broad. And price promotions. And when I say price promotions, there's free book promotions and then there's paid book promotions. I'm not a big fan of the free ones. I like the paid ones. But being able to track that. So, having your book at 99 cents, $2.99, $1.99, you don't see many books there, but $2.99. You can even keep it at $2.99 and do a paid price promotion. So doing those and seeing what gives you the best cost per new reader. Typically, in my experience, again, working with up to 200, if you do them right, Facebook ads is the best cost per new reader and the most scalable if you do them right.
If you do, I mean, that's something that I found so interesting. At the very beginning of this, we were talking about, what is it that works for you, and you should spend more time on that. And Facebook ads is an interesting thing. Amazon attribution tags finally gave me the ability to get like cold hard metrics about my ads. So I ran $100 worth of ads for one particular book, and I was getting $60 back once you factored in sales and page reads. And I tried with another book, and suddenly I was doubling my money every day. And it's like, the problem is, if you don't have that information, you could be doing the sales where you're getting $60 back for every $100 you spend, and putting more money into that just widens that margin. Whereas if you find out whether you're making a profit, it just needs to be 1 penny. But if you could actually prove that you're making a profit, then pour money into it. It's infinitely scalable on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's it could be better, but it's, we don't have the ability to install, which we never will have, which, the Facebook Pixel, that you can communicate with Facebook, that, if you're sending traffic to a website that you own, that you can do. Before I got into this, I was selling t-shirts. And on Redbubble, places like that, you can install the Facebook Pixel. So you can actually get data to see when people bought stuff. But Amazon, there's no use in crying over it. It just never happened, but it is what it is.
I mean, but attribution tags really makes that mood anyways, right? Like if you use a different attribution tag for your Facebook ads than you use for anywhere else, it's the same thing. You're still tracking your sales from the ones that come directly from your Facebook ads.
It does. It just means that we have to have more of a hands-on approach where Facebook would put more of the budget, if you're having, multiple ad sets or ads, they'd put more of the budget into one. But yeah, I
Right.
agree with you.
Right. Yeah. You'd have to track that yourself for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course with scalability, you can start getting, success breeds success, right? You get up to 5 sales a day, 10 sales a day, maybe 30 sales a day, right? So you're ranking, if you have your keywords set up well and your categories set up well, you're ranking better for those as well. So we're talking about like viral coefficient, right? So we start getting people which is the place we want to be, right? Not just paying at the beginning. You will be paying one reader. Here is $3. One reader, here's $3. You want more people that read it, the more possibility for word of mouth, the higher in the algorithm. That is the place you want to get to. Now, does every book get there? I don't think so. But
you want to start generating organic sales from your ad sales.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. People share in the post, right?
Right. And just in general, like you said, selling more books, you're moving up in the ranks, which then might make you show up on the top 100, top whatever pages, right? Which then again provides more organic visibility through through Amazon itself, right? Where people are just browsing and they see your book. Plus, the more sales you get, the more connected you get to other books, and that's another place where they can see you when they go to another book and they see, authors that read this also bought whatever. Then that's another way that they can find you.
Yeah, exactly. So success breeds success.
Absolutely. Now, one interesting question is about, what is the value of a new reader? Do you have any thoughts on about like read throughs and things like that? So I've got a 12-book series. So my goal is like, I want to obviously make profit from selling one particular book. But if those readers then go on to read the other book in my series, then, what could be $2.49 in profit from my royalties suddenly balloons into like 32.
That's exactly it. So, we're looking at the value per reader, and I have sheets that I go through with my clients, but, we're looking at it from a point of view. Okay, let's say my Kindle book is, just for simplicity, $2.99. So, minus my cut, minus the delivery fee, I'm making $2 a shot. So some people will say, okay, my value per reader is $2. But it goes much further than that. So in terms of, okay, how much do I earn for each book that's read through Kindle Unlimited?
That's right, depending on like 400 pages would be like $2.
Yeah, I can't think of it off the top of my head. But of course it changes. Was it like 0.
Yeah, it's around
yeah.
half a cent, I guess. Is it half a cent per page?
Yeah.
Something like that, right? So $400, $2, 400 pages, $2. That makes sense, I think.
Yeah, but if you're a fantasy author, right? Depending on how you have the pricing set up, you might be earning more with Kindle Unlimited than the actual price of your book, right? Fantasy being, multiple 100 pages, 150.
Yeah, I won't even pick up a fantasy book unless I'm like straining my wrists.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so looking at the distribution of your sales. Now, if you already have, sales currently, you can go back right to the beginning of time. The beginning of, not to the Big Bang, but when you launch your book, to be like, okay, I earned this much off of paperback, I earned this much off of Kindle, I earned this much off of page reads, and this is where you could do a little bit. Okay, well, 50% of my sale or 70% of my sales comes from Kindle Unlimited, so it's going to be weighted more towards that. Right? Say I only get $1.50, right, for somebody who reads the Kindle Unlimited book. And $2 if they buy the ebook, but 70% of my sales come through Kindle Unlimited. So really, my value per new reader is closer to like 165, just as an example, right? Because we want to make sure that's accurate. Because we want to make sure that's accurate to see, are we losing money with each sale or are we gaining money with each sale?
Which is where it all hangs together, isn't it?
That's exactly it. This is where the business comes together, right? These are the two main numbers you need to know to be able to do it full time. And make decisions, in close to real time as possible. So yeah, there's other factors that go into your value per reader. One is the book type. And of course, the other one the big one is read-through rate. Books. Now, I can say with working with authors, if you have a poor read-through rate, diagnosing a poor read-through rate is one of the most difficult things you could do in marketing. Why are people not reading book 2 after they read book 1? And some of it factors into, okay, was book 1 free and book 2 is $4.99, right? Okay, I got a 2% read-through rate. Okay, that makes sense, right? But the first book is $3.99, second book is $4.99, and I have a 10% read-through rate. Right, that's one of the most difficult things to diagnose. Do they know about book 2? Is it actually part of a series? Is the series set up properly on Amazon? Am I perhaps capturing email addresses at the end of book 1 and reminding them that there is a book 2? So that read-through rate, the biggest drop is between book 1 and 2. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as well. And yeah, the biggest drop is between book 1 and 2. Once you get them in book 2, usually you can keep the vast majority of them, not all of them, but
the read-through rate. Then,
yeah, they're committed to the story. They're sold on you.
It depends too on how long the series is. Like I've seen people sort of milk it a little bit too long, and then you start to drop readers as well. I mean, the quality, it's hard to maintain the quality for so many books and keep coming up with fresh ideas to put the same sort of characters in, right? So I think a lot of times, if people are writing these like massive 20-book series, you're probably going to see more drop off later on than you would at the beginning. I mean, presumably they're only doing that because they had strong read through at the beginning, but I don't think they'd be carrying that read through for the most part. But sometimes that's easier. And if the numbers are big enough, maybe it doesn't matter. If you have 1 million people going from each one and you're losing 10,000 per book, it's going to take a while before it matters too much that you need to start thinking of a new series.
And I've noticed definitely with my Facebook advertising that, my biggest book is the book I'm advertising, which is actually book 2. But then the next one, like book 1 suddenly has this 75% surge. And then book 3 has this, 66% surge. You can almost see like directly linked to the book you're advertising, how the other books are suddenly increasing in sale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, this might be a different discussion, but I'd love to hear your experience advertising book 2 in a series. But yeah, that's a whole other discussion. So the value per reader, yeah, it is affected a lot by, okay, what is the book priced at? How are they consuming it? And what is the read-through rate? Now, there's a ton of other things that I know other authors are experimenting with, or they're trying to make, try to make a foothold in terms of like maybe sell a sponsorship in the book, right? Like product placement, especially for authors that, are a little bit more established. Maybe build an email list, which is what we call stored value per reader. So then you could, promote other books. I know some authors are going to be experimenting with and they already have ties, like little action figures for their characters, right? So getting really creative. So yeah, creating that email list is all part of the stored value per reader, as long as the email list is clean.
Yeah, I think one way people are creating sort of that ongoing value as well. We talked to one author that set up a Patreon, right? And their Patreon is sort of where it's another level. They have the regular list too, but then they have their Patreon, and that's where they're sending them things. I don't know about action figures, but they're sending them different things, signed copies of a hardcover special edition, or book, branded bookmarks, or all that stuff. So yeah, there's ways there to sort of get more value, because those Patreon people are paying her a monthly fee. So she's not just sending it to just these people on her mailing list, but actually people that are paying extra to get these special things, right? That's interesting though, product placement. I haven't heard much about that in terms of authors getting money for, you know, doing product placement in their books, I would imagine you would have to be a pretty big author. Like, I mean, just because I read a book where somebody's drinking a Coke, it's not necessarily making me want to go drink a Coke. I mean, it might, but I tell you, like, I've been reading all those Jack Reacher books and finally pretty much almost done them. And, you know, he drinks a lot of black coffee, and it just always makes me think, I should try more black coffee. But it's just the repetition, really, I think.
The James Bond books are ridiculous with that. Like, I've got so much stuff that he, you know, I'll have Tiptree Marmalade because it's mentioned in the books, but they don't have a link. It's like, buy James Bond's Tiptree Marmalade by clicking on here.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I know it's more common, although not totally common, but more common in the nonfiction space. Because I do know of one author who did something like that to actually help fund the books and the editing of the books. So I know that there are people trying to experiment with different things to increase that value per reader.
I mean, in nonfiction, there's the book as a business magnet. You know, you give someone a book or you give them a free book, and then hopefully they'll come to you for consultancy. So, you know, talk about the value per reader. If your value is going to is $1,000 consultation, then, you know, you don't mind spending a huge amount to get your book out there.
And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. But I mostly work with fiction, and we just have like the books, right? I mostly just work with fiction at this time. But those are the two most important numbers to track. How much does it cost to bring in each reader, and how much is each reader value? What is the value of each reader that comes in? So just as a whole, you know, I work with authors and they're like, well, as of right now, I'm losing 20 cents on every book. I just have my first book, you know, it's at $3.99 and my cost per new reader is $3.20 and I'm earning $3. Okay, I'm losing 20 cents on each book. So, you know, it's not going to be exactly the same. There'll be ebbs and flows throughout the year or throughout the week, but they know on average, okay, I'm not putting in $1,000 into Facebook each month, because people are like, $30 a day, man, oh man, that's a lot of money, $1,000 a month. Okay, you're putting that in, but you might be getting $900 back.
Yeah.
Right. So you're really only putting $100 in a month. So knowing that, you know, you do have something in place to build an email list, which is stored value per reader. You're building the first book, you're getting more reviews and on it. You get more feedback on your writing. You're starting to get more familiar with how to advertise books. Okay, is that worth $100 a month to me?
Yeah, I mean, that's a brilliant way of looking at it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we go back to the core of this, just as sort of like a sum up as we get to the end here. So the cost per reader, when we talk about cost versus value per reader, the cost per reader is that where we're saying that's just the strict cost that it got you, that maybe the ACOS number or whatever, is that the cost per reader versus the value being, you know, all these other things that you get from the reader, like learning what you've done right, or selling other services through it, or the read through, the fact that they're going to read extra books. Is that sort of the difference between the two?
Yeah. So the cost per new reader is just finding the common denominator. So I put in this much, and then I got this many books sold.
Okay. So in the case of 100, you spend $100, you got 10 people through direct sales that you can measure. Then that's your cost per reader is $10, right?
Correct.
But then the value is different because of all these other factors. Like, what if they then went on and read book 2? Well, now you've got to factor the book 2 value into what that value per reader is. And if it's a $4 book, now your cost goes down from 10 to 6, right? Or your value goes, I guess, well, your cost was still 10, but your value, it changes based on all those other factors. And if you're selling services, if you're nonfiction and maybe you give away your book for free and you're like, oh, every book I'm giving away, it's like, it's not making me any money. But then for every 10 that you give away, maybe you get one person wanting a consult call for $200. Well, now it's, you gave away 10, but you got 200. So you could say each one was worth 20, that value just is all determined on all these different things that you can get from your book.
That's exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly it. So the value, the read through being the big one. If you're earning $4 and then measuring your read through. So read through is basically how many people read this book and go on to this book. Right. So you would assume, unless you are doing something like advertising book 2 or something else in a series, maybe it's a looser series, and you're advertising another book. Typically, the people who read book 2 have already read book 1. Right.
Right.
So,
except in Roland's case, where he's advertising book 2, right?
yeah. He's doing it. Yeah. Little
It's
different way.
because book 2 and my thing just has like a killer title that intrigues people, and then they're like, well, since we're here, we might as well read the other ones.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. If it works, then that's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly. So then the other thing is where it goes back to what you were saying earlier, way back where you said, writing more books, the importance of writing more books, because this whole read through thing only exists if you have more than one book. So the first time you're publishing a book, the value per reader, I mean, there might be other ways you can get value per reader, but it won't be through a read through, right? You've got to have more than one. And that doesn't necessarily mean a series either. Right, you have a backlist, and you should be not ignoring that backlist, because people come and they read one book and then they go and they say, "Oh, he's written 5 other ones. I should go read it," if they enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just writing more books to increase that value per reader, because if your value per reader is, for an example, and I know we're just doing a summing up here, but this is a good sum up. But if your value per reader, for an example, for each reader you bring in, X percentage of them will read 5 or 6 of your books. So the value per reader is $10, and the cost per new reader is $3. Well, if you were to give me $3, and every $3 you give me, I will give you $10 back. Well, let's put as much money as we can into advertising.
And that
right?
Exactly, that's when you nailed it earlier, where you're like, you've got to approach it like a business. If you went to a businessman and was like, yeah, I'll give you that deal, you pay me $3 and I'll bring you back $10 and we'll split it, he'd be like, bring it on.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, your first question is this legal? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
unfortunately, it looks like we're running out of time. You look like you're just about to have something really wise as a final thought.
No, I've spent all my wisdom for the session.
Well, I don't think you have, Craig. I don't know about you, but I think it would be great to have JD back at some point, because I think there's so much more we can discuss.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's doing a lot of things, and this him and I discussed a variety of topics that he could talk with us today about, and I'm sure that in the future we can come on and pick a different one, and we can get some more of his wisdom. For sure.
And thanks for having me on. It was great talking to you guys too, and just going back and forth. It's been quite an enjoyable conversation. Hopefully, quite valuable for your audience listening as well.
And not just our audience. Like, I think that I found a lot of value in that as well. So, JD, where can people find out more about you? Where can they go to Weekend Publisher? Let us know. Of course, we'll stick the links down below. But tell us where people can find you. Yeah,
absolutely. You can go to weekendpublisher.com. And you could find the information there. Again, I offer book marketing coaching, book marketing done for you, and writing coaching. So that's what we're doing right now. But there's lots of really useful articles on the website, and even on YouTube. Weekend Publisher, just type that in. That's where you can find me hanging out.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, JD. I found this really, really valuable. Do you have any final thoughts, Craig?
Other than just hopefully you will come back on, and I agree that anyone listening on this is definitely going to hear some valuable tips. So these are things, even if we've talked about some of them before, these are the kinds of things where there's nuances to everything, and you can hear the sort of the same idea more than once, but then there's bits of it that are different, that sort of always drive that point home, because sometimes people hear, the idea of, I got to write more books. But when you put it into the calculation of value per reader and why that matters, right, then it's just puts another spin on this. So it's really, really useful to keep talking to people about these topics and why they're important, because every author is different and every author's experience is different. So, there's going to be things that work for some and work for others. And that's why we want to keep talking about all these things.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, well, thank you so much, JD. We really appreciated you coming aboard. If you liked what JD had to say, let us know in the comment section down below. And if while you're down there, if you've got nothing else to do, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. There's a little bell notification. And of course, we'll be back next week with another episode of Fully Booked. So until then, thank you very much for supporting us. Cheerio.